NBA Finals are here, and it's the New York Knicks versus the San Antonio Spurs. The East's dominant force against a team that just survived a Western Conference gauntlet that would have broken most rosters. But here's what nobody's talking about enough. This series isn't going to be decided by who has the prettier stat line. It's going to be decided in the last 5 minutes of a one-possession game, clutch time, the most unforgiving stage in professional basketball. And the data reveals something brutal. Some of the biggest names in this series, guys who looked like killers all season long, their numbers don't just dip when the pressure arrives. They fall apart. And on the flip side, there are teams that nobody's crowning right now, who turn into something completely different when everything's on the line. So that's the question driving everything we're about to get into. Who is the real clutch king of this finals? Not on paper, in the fire, when it actually counts. The numbers have an answer, and I promise you, it's not the one you're expecting. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what actually separates contenders from pretenders in these playoffs. Not regular season records, not all-star appearances. Clutch time execution, the last 5 minutes of a one-possession game. That's the truth serum. And when you map every team's performance in those moments across two axes, how well they score and how well they defend, you get a picture that is ruthless in its clarity. Start with the teams that are thriving. The New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves both land in the elite tier, teams that can hurt you on both ends when the game is tight. But the Knicks? They're in a category of their own defensively. Their clutch time defense rating comes in at 87.1. 87. That's not just good, that's suffocating. Opponents aren't struggling to score against New York in these moments. They're completely shut down. Minnesota holds the same elite position, keeping a real balance on both ends. But nobody in this field is doing what the Knicks do defensively when everything's on the line. Now here's where it gets interesting. Oklahoma City and the Lakers are both high-powered in clutch time, but they're built completely differently from New York. Their defense leaks, and they've accepted that. Because their offense rating, Oklahoma City's number jumps to 117.1. That's a weapon. That's a team that's decided, we're going to outscore you, not outgrind you. It works, until you run into a wall like the Knicks. And then there's the bottom of the map, 4 teams that the pressure is actively breaking. Philadelphia, San Antonio, Detroit, and Cleveland are all clustered in the same failing zone, and each one is collapsing in a different way. Detroit's defensive problem is the most severe. Their clutch time defense rating lands at 111.8. Teams are carving them up every single possession that matters. Cleveland's issue is the opposite, and honestly, it might be worse. Their offense rating in clutch situations sits at 90.1. 90. When the game's on the line, they can't generate points. That's a death sentence in a 5-point game. Philadelphia and San Antonio can't escape it either. One end or the other gives out, and the pressure drags them both down into that same failing territory. Here's the real takeaway from all of this. Clutch time doesn't create your weaknesses. It just makes them impossible to hide. The elite teams get sharper. Their best traits become more extreme when it matters. The vulnerable teams, the fractures that were always there suddenly run all the way through. And that brings us directly to the question that changes everything heading into this finals. Because these numbers tell us where teams are right now. But did they earn this, or did something shift when the playoffs arrived? How different does this look compared to the regular season? That's exactly what the net rating data reveals next. And the gap between who these teams were and who they've become is going to genuinely surprise you. How much does regular season clutch performance actually matter once the playoffs start? The honest answer? For most of these teams, it doesn't. Here's the part that actually matters, and the Lakers are where you need to start. The Los Angeles Lakers came into the playoffs with a clutch net rating of positive 26.0 during the regular season, best in this field. Not close. They were the gold standard for closing out games when it mattered. And then the playoffs started. That number went from plus 26 all the way down to basically 0, a complete collapse. And this wasn't just a cold shooting stretch. Their entire late-game structure broke down. The shot selection that looked so confident in February turned into a liability against playoff-level defense. The possessions that used to end in buckets started ending in turnovers and contested misses. Both ends of the floor failed them simultaneously. That's not a slump. That's a system that couldn't survive the pressure. Cleveland and Detroit tell the same story, just with different details. The Cavaliers were genuinely elite in clutch situations during the regular season. In the playoffs, they fell apart. A swing of more than 30 points in the wrong direction. 30. Detroit's fall is just as brutal. Every bit of late-game equity they built over 82 games? Gone within weeks. Worst clutch net rating in the entire field. Philadelphia and San Antonio followed the same pattern. Philly fell hard, from solidly positive territory into double-digit negative. San Antonio tracked the same path. Both teams ran the same offensive sets, leaned on the same individual shot creators, and watched opponents pick them apart possession by possession. The scouting caught up. The adjustments never came. But here's where the data stops being a horror story. The New York Knicks didn't collapse. Their clutch net rating was positive 20.5 during the regular season, and in the playoffs, it actually climbed, up to positive 22.3. While every other team around them was shedding points off their clutch numbers, the Knicks got better. Same identity, sharper execution, higher stakes, and the results held. That's not luck. That's a system built specifically for this environment. Oklahoma City dipped slightly, from positive 23.8 down to positive 17.1, but they're still comfortably elite. Still one of the best clutch units in the field, even after absorbing playoff-level resistance. And then there's Minnesota, and this is where the truth really shows up. The Timberwolves' regular season clutch net rating was negative 1.2. They weren't even in positive territory. In close, late-game situations, they were a below-average team all season long. Then the playoffs arrived. Their clutch net rating jumped to positive 16.9, one of the best marks in the entire field. A team that struggled to close games in March became a precision instrument in May, executing on both ends in the moments that actually decide series. That kind of transformation doesn't happen by accident. Something changed. The rotations tightened, the decision-making sharpened, or the right players stepped into the right roles at exactly the right time. Whatever it was, the timing couldn't have been better. Here's the cold truth this data is handing us. Playoff clutch time is a completely different sport. The regular season numbers build narratives, but the postseason numbers reveal character. And for most of these teams, the character the playoffs exposed looked nothing like the story the regular season was telling. The question now is why? What specifically broke down in the teams that fell apart? And what did the Knicks and Minnesota actually change to hold their ground or climb higher? That's exactly where we're going next. Behind every swing in net rating, there's a tactical story. And the execution profiles of these Eastern Conference teams tell that story better than any highlight reel ever could. Let's break down all four. Start with the team that's actually in the finals, the New York Knicks. Their clutch time profile doesn't look balanced. It looks warped, and that's exactly why it works. The number that jumps off the page is their rebounding rate. During the regular season, they were pulling down around 52.2% of available boards in clutch situations. In the playoffs, that number exploded to 63.6%. That's not a trend. That's a team deciding that every missed shot belongs to them. Full stop. Now, their turnover rate did climb up to 18.8%, and their free throw rate dipped. Those are real cracks. But here's why it doesn't matter. They're shooting efficiently enough to stay dangerous. And when they miss, they're getting the ball back anyway. The offensive rebound obsession covers the mistakes. That's a hard combination to game plan against when everything's on the line. Detroit is the exact opposite story, and it's painful to look at. During the regular season, the Pistons were doing two things well in clutch time. They were winning the glass at 56.6%, and they were getting to the free throw line at a strong rate. That was their identity. That was their leverage. In the playoffs, both pillars collapsed at the same time. Their rebounding rate fell to 46.6%. Their free throw rate got cut in half. And without those weapons, the frustration crept in. Turnover rate climbed to 19.1%. They stopped winning the physical battles, started forcing plays, and the mistakes piled up. When you lose your two biggest advantages and add self-inflicted damage on top, that's how you end up at the bottom of the clutch efficiency map. Cleveland's data tells a slightly different version of the same collapse, and it's all about offensive paralysis. Their effective field goal rate in clutch time dropped to 40.6%. Their free throw rate nearly got cut in half. And unlike Detroit, Cleveland wasn't even forcing plays to compensate. Their turnover rate held at a reasonable 11.3%. But that's almost the problem. They were taking care of the ball, running their sets cleanly, and still couldn't score. The discipline was there, the firepower wasn't. When you lose both your shooting efficiency and your ability to attack the paint under pressure, your offense doesn't just slow down, it stalls completely. That's what happened to the Cavaliers when it mattered most. And then there's Philadelphia, and their profile is genuinely fascinating because one number stands completely alone. Their turnover rate in clutch time? 5.0%. That is extraordinary. Under maximum pressure, against playoff caliber defenses, They were protecting the ball at an almost historic level. Fewer possessions, cleaner decisions, almost zero self-inflicted wounds. The problem is what happened at the other end of those clean possessions. Their effective field goal rate collapsed to 41.2%. They were getting to their spots, they were getting their looks, and they couldn't knock them down. There's something almost more frustrating about that kind of failure, because the process was right. The execution at the moment of truth just wasn't there. So here's the through line across all four of these Eastern teams. The Knicks found one thing they could dominate, the offensive glass, and leaned into it so hard that it covered every other flaw. The other three teams watched their primary strengths evaporate under playoff pressure, with nothing to fill the void. Clutch time doesn't give you time to adjust mid-possession. You either have a reliable weapon, or you don't. Coming up, we move to the Western Conference teams, and the tactical profiles get even more dramatic from here. Now let's shift to the West. And before we get into the numbers, there's something you need to understand about this conference. The Western bracket wasn't a hierarchy. It was a demolition derby. Every team in this field was capable of beating every other team on any given night. So when you see efficiency numbers drop across the board, don't read that as weakness. Read it as what happens when elite teams spend an entire playoff run trying to cancel each other out. That context matters a lot. Start with the defending champions. Oklahoma City. Their profile coming out of this playoff run looks genuinely strange at first glance. Their free throw rate cratered to the lowest mark in this entire field. Their rebounding rate collapsed to 40.0%. Those are not numbers you'd expect from a team that entered as the favorite. But here's what makes Oklahoma City's story different from the teams that simply fell apart. Their effective field goal rate in clutch time actually climbed above their regular season number, all the way up to 60.0%. Think about what that means. They couldn't get to the line, they were getting out-rebounded, and they responded by making their shots at an elite level anyway. That's not a team breaking down. That's a team making a calculated trade. When you can't control the glass and you can't manufacture free throws, you start hunting only the best possible looks. Every clutch possession became a precision operation. It kept them alive longer than their other numbers suggest it should have. Now, San Antonio, the team that actually came out of the West, and their profile is going to raise some eyebrows. Their turnover rate in clutch time hit 23.2%. Their effective field goal rate dropped. On paper, their offense looks ragged, undisciplined even. But here's the number that explains everything. Their rebounding rate jumped to 60.7%. 60.7 in clutch time against this field. The Spurs weren't winning the West because they ran a prettier offense than anyone else. They were winning it because they refused to let possessions die. A missed shot for San Antonio wasn't a failure. It was the start of a second chance, and in a conference where everyone is trying to take away everyone else's strengths, the team that kept manufacturing extra possessions through sheer physical will was always going to have the last word. That's what got them to the finals. Minnesota's profile tells the story of a team that came close, but couldn't quite hold it together when it mattered most. Their effective field goal rate dropped in clutch situations. Their free throw rate fell from 43.2% during the regular season down to 28.1% in the playoffs. And their turnover rate climbed to 16.7%, worse than average. They held their rebounding rate above the midline, which kept them from a complete collapse. But the pattern across everything else is consistent. The precision eroded, the mistakes accumulated, and in a conference this tight, you can't absorb that kind of damage and survive. The rebounds kept them competitive, everything else gave the game away. And finally, Los Angeles. Their overall profile shrank compared to the regular season. That's undeniable. The shooting efficiency that made them look like a juggernaut in close games during February and March significantly diminished under playoff pressure. But look at how they responded to that. Their free throw rate, which was actually their smallest weapon during the regular season, became their most prominent weapon in the playoffs. When the shot-making dried up, they pivoted. They started hunting contact, drawing fouls, grinding for points the hard way. Most teams don't adapt like that mid-series. Most teams just keep running the same sets until they stop working and hope something changes. The Lakers recognized their offense was compromised and found a different path to the line. It wasn't enough to advance, but it tells you something real about how that team is built. Here's what the West as a whole is actually showing us. San Antonio didn't win this conference by being the most talented team on a spreadsheet. They won it by being the most relentless team on the glass when everything was on the line. Oklahoma City fought with precision. Minnesota fought with effort but made too many mistakes. Los Angeles fought with adaptability, but too late. One team controlled the possessions that mattered most. And that team is now in the finals. We've looked at how efficient these teams were in clutch time. Now let's go one level deeper, because efficiency tells you the score, but play type breakdown tells you the recipe. The metric we're using here weights each play type by both its efficiency and how often a team actually ran it in clutch situations. Think of it as the true offensive output per possession. Every shot, every action, every decision stacked up and measured. And what comes out the other side is a completely different picture for each team. Start at the top, the New York Knicks. Their total weighted scoring output clears 109, best in this field. And the reason it's so high isn't one dominant play type, it's the opposite. The Knicks are built in layers. Their spot-up game contributes north of 25, that's their foundation, the floor spacing that keeps defenses honest. Their transition game adds another 22 plus on top of that. And then there's the number that shouldn't surprise you at this point, their putback contribution. Remember what we said about their rebounding obsession? 63.6% of available boards in clutch time? That's not just winning the glass, that's converting those second chances into actual points. The Knicks don't just get the rebound, they score off it. And when you've got 3 reliable scoring layers working simultaneously in a one-possession game, you become very, very difficult to game plan against. Oklahoma City took a completely different path to the same elite tier. Their defining number is their spot-up contribution, over 31. That's the highest mark in this entire field. What that tells you is that in clutch situations, the Thunder were operating at an exceptionally high level of spacing and ball movement. Kick-out passes finding shooters in rhythm, with enough space to get clean looks. That's not easy to manufacture against playoff defenses that are specifically trying to take it away. Where the Knicks win with volume and variety, Oklahoma City wins with surgical precision on the perimeter. One primary asset, deployed at an elite level. Now San Antonio, the team that actually came out of the West. Their defining play type in clutch time is transition, and it's not close. They generated more than 25 points of weighted output in transition alone. Best in this field. Think about what that means tactically. They're winning the rebounding battle. We already established that at 60.7%. And instead of resetting into a half-court set, they're pushing fast. Before the defense can get organized, the Spurs are already at the rim. They're converting chaos into points before the opponent even has a chance to set their feet. That's not an accident. That's a system. Rebound, run, score, before the other team can breathe. And in a conference as talented as the West, that formula was just enough to get them through. Philadelphia's profile is worth a quick note here too. Their total output sits below 100, but their pick-and-roll ball handler contribution is the highest in this field. They were absolutely dependent on one creator making plays out of the two-man game. When that worked, it worked. When the defense took it away, they had nowhere else to go. On the other end of the spectrum, 4 teams stalled out below 98 in total weighted output. Cleveland, Los Angeles, Detroit, and Minnesota. Minnesota sits at the very bottom, somewhere in the low 90s. They had spot-up and transition contributions, but no play type that could actually break down a locked-in playoff defense in the half-court. When the game slowed down and the other team had time to set up, Minnesota ran out of answers. Los Angeles and Cleveland share the same fundamental problem. Every individual play type came in small. No single asset they could lean on when the possession count was critical. No go-to action that the defense genuinely feared. When you don't have a reliable closer, a play that works even when the opponent knows it's coming, clutch time becomes a coin flip, and coin flips don't win series. Detroit's issues track with everything we've already seen. The physical dominance that defined them during the regular season evaporated, and there was nothing in the play type breakdown to compensate. Here's the bottom line on all of this. Every team in these playoffs had a plan for clutch time, but a plan is only as good as the execution behind it. And the weighted play type data exposes exactly which teams had a reliable identity when the pressure was highest. The Knicks had 3, San Antonio had one that was nearly impossible to stop, Oklahoma City had one that required near-perfect spacing to work, and they delivered it anyway. The teams that lost? They went into the fire without a tool they could truly trust, and in a one-possession game with 2 minutes left. That's the difference between moving on and going home. We've torn apart every angle of this data, every efficiency metric, every play type breakdown, every clutch situation these teams lived and died in. Now it's time to hand down the verdict. Here is the official clutch execution ranking for this playoff run. Coming in at number 3, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And look, their offensive numbers were messy, turnovers climbed, the shooting efficiency dipped. On paper, there were real problems. But here's why they make this list. They came into the playoffs with a negative clutch net rating, and they flipped it to positive 16.9. That kind of transformation in that environment against that competition, that's real adaptation. They figured something out when it mattered most. Number 2, the Los Angeles Lakers. Their overall profile shrank, we've established that. But what keeps them this high is how they responded to it. When the shot-making dried up, they didn't keep forcing the same plays. They shifted, started hunting contact, drawing fouls, grinding for points in ways that weren't even part of their regular season identity. Most teams can't make that kind of adjustment mid-series under maximum pressure. The Lakers did. That's a form of clutch execution that doesn't always show up cleanly in the efficiency numbers, but it absolutely shows up in why they stayed competitive as long as they did. And number 1, and it's not particularly close, the New York Knicks. Their shooting efficiency dropped in clutch time, that's real. But here's what they did instead. They went and got the ball back. 63.6% of available rebounds. Putback points that ranked among the best in the field. A weighted offensive output that cleared 109 tops in this entire tournament. They didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to make sure the other team never got to be perfect either. That's a different kind of dominance, and it's the most durable kind there is. Now here's where this ranking stops being a history lesson and starts being a finals preview. The Knicks are not just the best clutch team in this tournament. In the last 5 minutes of a one-possession game, they are the most dangerous team in basketball right now. The defensive rating of 87.1. The rebounding stranglehold. The layered offensive attack that doesn't rely on one play or one player. When games get tight and late, the Knicks become a different organism entirely. And San Antonio? The Spurs earned their way out of the most competitive conference in basketball. That's real. The context matters. Their numbers were ground down by the gauntlet they survived. There's an argument to be made for them, but that argument has a ceiling. Because the pure clutch data is what it is. The Spurs didn't crack the top 3 in this ranking. And that means if this finals comes down to the last 5 minutes, San Antonio is walking into a situation that heavily favors New York. So here's the real tactical question heading into this series. The Spurs' only path to a championship might not run through clutch time at all. It might require avoiding it entirely. Win the first 3 quarters, build a lead that survives the 4th, make the final 5 minutes irrelevant before they arrive. Because if San Antonio lets this get to a one-possession game with 2 minutes left, the data says the Knicks close it out, almost every time. The real finals, the one that actually decides this series, isn't going to happen in the last 5 minutes. It's going to happen in the 43 minutes before that. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Does the Grim Reaper of clutch time get his hands on this series and the Knicks close it out the way the numbers say they should? Or do the Spurs play 43 minutes of disciplined, decisive basketball and make the final stretch irrelevant? Drop your take in the comments. This is exactly the kind of series where the tactical breakdown matters, and I want to hear how you see it playing out.